they very certainly seem within themselves to have a resentment against the press for the intrusion. And I suppose we can understand that. But at the same time, they know they rely on that press coverage to sell what it is they're using to pay for their lavish lifestyle.
Waking up, what do you think the palace reaction was to these stories that are starting to trickle out?
Well, I think they're going to wait and see what more is in the book. They don't have to wait very long now. It's also been seen on the shelves. I've seen in Spain in its Spanish edition already. So there might be a flurry of activity for Spanish to English translators translating the book back. Who knows? But I think that the royal family, obviously there will be people working for them at the very least who will be poring through the pages trying to see what's in there, if there's any damage limitation they need to do. Their natural instinct is to try and ignore this stuff publicly at any rate. They don't want this to be a distraction from their own attempts and their own work and their own image that they're very carefully looking after. But of course, sometimes they do have to react. We saw the late Queen with her recollections may vary, and we may see more of that sort of thing. Also, though, there's somebody new in charge now, King Charles III, and he may have a different way of dealing with this. He may be firmer and harder. It's another thing that we're told happened was that he apparently spoke to his two sons after Prince Philip's funeral and urged them not to make his final years more difficult. Well, it doesn't seem like that message got through to Montecito at all. I think it seems to me that Harry and Meghan are quite comfortable with making his life harder and doing so in return for money. And people will judge them for that, I think, regardless of what they think about the emotional impact being in that family had on Harry's life. I think that people will still judge them, even if they're sympathetic towards some of his complaints, for selling this drama and these secrets to the very press that he complained about so frequently. Without that press interest, this book won't sell. Without that press interest, the Netflix series would have tanked. Without the press interest, we wouldn't be talking about Meghan and Harry. We wouldn't really know who Meghan Markle is, because without that press interest, well, what would they be selling? And I think that to me is the weird duality of this whole story. They very certainly seem within themselves to have a resentment against the press for the intrusion. And I suppose we can understand that. But at the same time, they know they rely on that press coverage to sell what it is they're using to pay for their lavish lifestyle.
Right. I mean, is the royal family almost forced in a way? I mean, nobody's ever going to force the royal family to do something, but can you stay silent for this long when a flurry of accusations are coming your way? It's kind of hard to ignore it.
Well, sometimes they respond without responding, if you see what I mean. So sometimes they respond in their actions or by getting on with business as usual. Right. And I think they may try to do that. On the large part of their reaction, I think, will be that. It will be to show that they do what they do, and that's that. And I always say this as well, that while these things are potentially damaging to the royal family, you've got to remember that the royal family and the California branch of the family operate on very different PR strategies. So the royal family is concerned with, in terms of PR, in terms of its reputation, it's generational, it's historical, it's traditional. It thinks in decades and centuries. Of course, two people trying to carve out a new life over the ocean aren't thinking in terms of that necessarily. They're thinking about their lifetime and their reputation, and even more immediately, the next year or two, when their earning potential might be at its highest. So I think that they have two different agendas, and that's why sometimes the royal family probably is willing to ride out a storm if it's not too irrevocably damaging or permanently damaging, because they know that in the longer war, even if they lost the odd battle, they're going to come out on top. And I suspect that will be their guiding principle when they're deciding how to react. But of course, they will have to react here and there, even if not directly, to some of the things that are being said.
Definitely. And then, we saw one more clip from ITV with Prince Harry saying that he's unsure if he'll attend the coronation. I can't imagine an invitation's in the mail at the moment. And then he did say that the ball is in King Charles and Prince William's court, which I just find interesting as well, because it doesn't really seem that way.
I mean, the ball may be in their court, but the second it's volleyed back, it could be lobbed in their face. And I think that in terms of the coronation, that's also a question that people have been asking over and over. Will they be invited, and then will they attend? I think they will be invited, because I think that the king wants to invite them. And I think also not inviting them would look potentially difficult or bad in this ongoing drama. So I think if the royal family is interested to try and just quell this soap opera, the best thing they can do is just keep behaving in the proper way. Whether or not they will expect them to come or not is another matter. And whether or not they will come is another matter yet again, because I think you'd have to be quite, I'm not sure what the word is, to do all of this, to write this in the books, to give these interviews, to do these Netflix interviews as well, and then turn up to the coronation as if nothing's happened. I think that would be quite an extraordinary thing to do. But then some people wouldn't put it past them.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.